I'm delighted to have a former colleague and friend of mine, Jack Murray, who's the CEO of MediaContact.ie, here to talk to you today. Jack is actually a former UL student. He has extensive experience working as a journalist, media advisor and press officer for the Progressive Democrats. His company at the moment produces the Media Contacts book, the Irish Media Contacts book, which is the must guide for anybody wanting to start a career in journalism. And they also produce the Galzac's Guide to Expert Sources, which again is a great guide for all young journalists, where you will find experts in any field that you want to talk about who will give you a comment on whatever story you're covering. He's going to talk to you today about how to forge a career in the media that will last a lifetime. So would you give him a warm welcome, please?
Hello everybody. I went to school here. I think this was the car park when I was here. It's that long ago. So it's just proof that it doesn't all end up on the dole queue. So I'm going to spend about half an hour just kind of talking through, I suppose, how I got to study here and kind of what happened afterwards. And when I was preparing the talk, I had a look back at my career over the last kind of 16 or 17 years, and I suppose just for what it's worth, a couple of pearls of wisdom as to what I think can help you out in your career. And Mary kind of said to me therefore yesterday, give me a title for your talk, and it took me until I was about 23 to realise that one of the things that would be really good work-wise would be to work in the media. And you guys obviously hopefully have arrived at that point that it's a good thing. And I can tell you, after doing it for 17 years, it's a great thing. And we all have to do stuff. We all do stuff from time to time that we don't like. And when I was trying to think of the name of the talk, it struck me that if I was 20 in my early 20s and I was studying the media, trying to figure out how I could have a lifetime working in the media would be a really good thing. And I think you guys are at a very kind of interesting start to the journey. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to hand this out. When I was printing this out last night, I remembered how we used to act the maggot when we used to get the tutorial sheets. And our Lord Jesus Christ and the footballer Zico used to always get written on this handout. So feel free to write whatever you want on. But if you can give me your Twitter address or your email address, and I can add you to our network and kind of keep in touch with you. This is a really good book actually, and it's by a guy called Paul Arden, and it's called "It's Not How Good You Are, It's How Good You Want to Be." And if you're in the last couple of weeks of college thinking about what you're going to do with your life, it's worth buying on Amazon and having a read of it. You'll read it in about an hour. And a lot of the philosophy that's in it, I read it first about 10 years ago, but a lot of the philosophy that's in it is about how to make yourself better and how to reach out to an audience, and I found it really useful. So this is me, and if you're on Twitter, feel free to follow me. My personal account is Media Murray, and the work account is Media Flash. Give me a shout on Twitter. So Mary was saying that one of the things we do is I run a media intelligence company, and I'm going to come back to talk about Media HQ. And a lot of the stuff that I've worked on in the last couple of years is taking a traditional book and bringing it into an online and into a digital resource, and I'll come back to that. Peter Drucker is a management writer. And the best way to predict the future is to create it. I really believe this, and one of the big bits of advice I give people who are about to embark on a journey in the world is to impose your will on what's in front of you. And an excuse is just an excuse; it's a crutch, and everybody has it within themselves to achieve and to get on. I remember being in the last couple of months studying business studies here. And Jim Dalton was a lecturer in marketing, and I don't remember Jim as being the best lecturer we had, but in the dying days of fourth year, he came into a lecture hall across the way, and he said, "I want to give you a bit of advice." He said, barring the fact that you want to become a PhD, he said, you'll do your final exams pretty soon and you'll get your results. And he said, as long as you pass them, he said, and you get your degree, that's all that matters. He said, 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, 2 years down the line, he said, you know, it's not really going to matter as long as you've got the right attitude, you know the right people, you work hard enough, and you apply yourself to what's in front of you. And he said it as a kind of a throwaway remark one day in college, and it lodged in the front of my brain. And you know, it really made an impact on me. I thought, actually, you know what, he's right. And it immediately made me regret. The minute he said it, it made me regret that I hadn't engaged in college life more. And I was a bit of a swot. I spent far too much time in the books and not enough time in kind of life around me. And I tried to kind of learn from that. And from that point forward, I suppose, I tried to live a kind of a more kind of fuller and kind of complete life. So how did I get to study media studies? Well, I'm from Ballinasloe. Anyone here from County Galway? Yay! Okay, I'm from Ballinasloe, which is almost County Roscommon now. My wife wants to really annoy me, she calls it the Midlands. And it only annoys me because it's only half not true. And so when I grew up here, so this is on the old kind of main road from Galway to Dublin, and I'm very much a shopkeeper's son from the west of Ireland, and it's kind of funny, I have 2 small kids now, and you feel about 80 years of age when you try and tell them that there were no iPhones or no iPads. Reminds me of my father telling me he used to, the only toys he had were cut out of the back of cornflakes boxes, which is a lie. But my socialisation and my introduction to the world was I'd come home from school and throw the bag in under the desk, and I'd race out to the shop to see what was happening. And my version of Facebook was going out to the shop counter to see what random strangers would come in, to see what the news was, to see what was going on. And then we'd all congregate around the kitchen table at tea time, and my father would come in with all these outlandish stories of stuff that was happening around the town. And his single transferable source was, oh, a man came into the yard today and told me that. And the most famous one was a health inspector went into the local hotel uptown and found a dead cat under one of the cookers. I said, that's not true. I'm telling you now, a man told me that. And I suppose the point is that that's what introduced me to, that was my early socialization into news and to kind of getting to know kind of about telling stories and about news. And my dad's name is Joe, and he's the slogan of the business is deal with Joe, the man you know. And my dad knows every farmer from Athlone to Loughrea. It's kind of like a 45-mile radius. He knows every blade of grass. If the cops are ever looking for somebody, they always call into him. He's like a young guard that come in and say, I'm looking for a fellow up there around Loughrea. He says, oh yeah, I know where he lives. And that also had a massive impression on me. And the news, folks, is that you can never know enough people. And the older you get, the smaller the world gets. And if you collect people as you go through your career, it makes life so much easier. I was preparing a client media training on Monday. He's doing an interview on the Pat Kenny program tomorrow. And kind of randomly, I said, oh, our office is in Harold's Cross. And he said to me, this guy's from Uri. He said, my sister lives in Harold's Cross. And to cut a long story short, my daughter is in school with his nephew. And like, that is just one of a million stories I can tell you about how small the world gets when your network gets bigger, or when you decide to kind of grow a network. The business was started by my great-grandfather in 1884, and he went to America the year after the Civil War, and he went as a poor farmer from County Roscommon, and he came back as a business tycoon. And amazingly, he went to America for 19 years and came back to set up a business. And you know, that was the reason that I got into the news and the media, and I suppose that's what piqued my interest. I went to Garbley College, and Garbley College is a secondary school in Ballinasloe. And myself and my brother recently remarked how lucky we are, or were, that the education institution, secondary education institution in Ballinasloe was so good. So it was just a local secondary school. And I wasn't much good at English. I used to always write stuff for the college book, and it used to never get published. And I kind of but I always had this kind of hankering to write stuff, but none of it ever seemed to be any good. And I came to transition year, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll study communications. And I'll study communications in DCU. And there's a guy called Donald Scannell, who was a few years ahead of me, who works in the media in Dublin, and Donald was studying communications. So he had invited me up to Dublin, and he was going to show me the campus in DCU. And I played a rugby match, and I hurt my knee. And it's funny, that's 24 years ago, it's still sore. And it's kind of funny because it really derailed me in that I hurt my knee, and I ended up not going to DCU, and I didn't get to see the communications course. And I suppose, like lots of 16-year-olds, I got a bit distracted, and I ended up here. And Limerick was number 4 on my choice of CEO, and I remember being desperately disappointed. I put far too much pressure on myself during my leaving cert, and I remember being desperately disappointed with my results. On my poor mother, I got into the car the day we went up to pick the leaving cert results, and I remember catching the leaving cert results, throwing them in on the dash of the car, and with my fist, banging my hand on the dash of the car, and I said, "Is that what all the effing effort was for?" I said, "For that." I said, "What a joke." And I did 7 honours subjects, and I put so much pressure on myself. And my friend's brother was the hotel manager in Adair, and I went to see him the night before the college places came out. And I was telling Mary over lunch that I'm doing a bit of work at DIT, and my daughter, who's very smart, reminded me, "But Dad, you didn't want to go to Limerick, you wanted to go to Trinity." I said, "Yeah, you're right, yeah, I didn't want to go to Limerick at all." And then it came up that I got a place here, and like what happens in life, I looked at it and I thought, you know what, this is a great school, it's going to be brilliant, and I came here to study business, and I applied myself to it, and very quickly I realised I was in the right place. And it's kind of funny that 20 years later, to see the place, and I can tell you, as someone who's an alumni of here, 20 years after being here, I'm so proud that I came here, and I tell the Limerick story to people I meet, and say, "Have you ever been to UL? Have you ever been there? Have you seen it?" I said, "It's so good and so impressive, it's almost not like Ireland, you know?" It's like you're in America, and that's the best kind of compliment that you could pay. So what happened to me was I came here and I studied business and marketing, and I got to 4th year, and I don't know what's going on with you guys right now, kind of in your own kind of projects and courses and stuff, but kind of got utterly confused when I got to 4th year. And I was studying business studies, and I used to go into lectures, and myself and my friend Michael Lovett would sit down, and I would kind of have this kind of single transferable conversation where we'd say, why are we here? And there's a whole lot of people in our class who wanted to be financial controllers. And I thought, okay, not like those guys, and just couldn't get what it was all about. I got utterly confused about where I was going, what I was supposed to be doing, and just got a bit, down, kind of not as down as I got after my leaving cert, but kind of thought, God, I'm now entering the phase of my life. It's the first time since I was born that I'm not in the structure, and like that doesn't feel really good. And it was all planned up to now, and if I'm going to make an impact on what's going to happen, how am I going to figure it out? So I went back home, and I was cutting the grass one day. I was working in my dad's shop, and I was cutting the grass one day, and I got a call from the personnel manager of DeBarry Shoes. And the year before I left college, I had kind of hustled, a good man to hustle, and I had rung the personnel manager and hustled 4 weeks work experience out of him. I said, I'm across the whole marketing thing. You guys do marketing. I think, can I come in, please? And I kept ringing him, and he went, yeah, come on in. And like, I was in the place a week, and the guy rang and said, can you drive? Oh, I drive, yeah, no problem, yeah, drive. I had a provisional driver's license. He threw me the keys of a rather large van and said, yeah, you're doing quite well there. He says, would you mind driving to Arnott's in Dublin tomorrow and do a whole lot of merchandising? Like, I was in Arnott's with people asking me about window displays, and I was just bluffing my way through it. So I'm cutting my parents' grass, and he says to me, will you come out here, we've got a marketing job. So I did a marketing job in the shoe company for a year, and I realized pretty quickly that I didn't like it. And when you live with your parents, and you might identify with this, when you live with your parents in your 20s, it can get a bit depressing. And when you're in your 20s, you should be able to walk into the kitchen in your jocks and meet strangers, not your parents' friends. And I'd been kind of 18 months living at home, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And that thought I had when I was 16 came back into the front of my brain about, oh, what about the media? What about doing journalism? And two things happened kind of in quick succession. And I suppose one is this man, Sean O'Rourke, and I suppose I've been lucky in my career to get to know Sean O'Rourke and to talk to him and to chat about things with him, and I suppose to work with him, with clients and people who've been on his programme. But Sean grew up in Galway. I was from Galway. I saw him on the radio and I thought, God, he's brilliant. He's just so good at what he does. Imagine if I could be on the radio and I could do what he do. So that was one thing that was kind of in front of my mind. And then the other thing happened was, people here know McGill magazine? Well, back about back in the late 70s through to the 80s, and then it was relaunched in 1997. McGill was where it was at. And if anybody's ever watched All the President's Men and got that buzz from journalism, got that thing of, God, I could go and I could find things out that could make a real difference. And if you wanted to do that in Ireland, you wrote for McGill. And I have this very vivid memory of my mother driving me up to the local centre when I was working in Dubarry Shoes and coming out with the relaunched McGill in my hand. And I said to her, I want to write for this someday. And it was that whole process that drove me back into thinking about journalism and a career in the media. And a job ad came up in Shannonside Radio. So I applied for the job, and Joe Finnegan, who's their kind of station controller, brought me in and did a job interview with him. I had no experience. I'm sure the job interview didn't go particularly well. And thankfully, I didn't get the job. And this man, Fran McNulty, who's now an anchor on Morning Ireland, got the job. And myself and Fran are friends, and we were joking on Twitter recently because I said to him, "Why did you start in Shannonside?" And I basically told, it was news to him that he got the job that they didn't take me on for, and he was laughing, going, "Oh, you escaped easy there." And but I got another break, and I got accepted into the DIT, and I got accepted into the DIT to do a postgraduate in journalism. And I suppose if you take a little bit of my back history, I come from somebody who'd been utterly confused, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Had spent a year doing something that I kind of was good at, could have had a really good career at, but didn't really like. And what did that teach me? It taught me that we all spend far too long working not to enjoy it. And you're going to spend 40 hours plus every week working. So it's really important that you get a kick or you get a buzz out of it. And I went into the DIT, and a couple of things became really obvious in the DIT. One was that the brand of the journalism course there was far better than the actual course. So I was in there and I thought, okay, I'm going to get a qualification here in journalism. When it's all done, what's going to happen? Like, who's going to give me a job? So my kind of hustling skills kind of came to the fore again. And one of the other great things my father taught me was how to get tickets to the All-Ireland hurling final. And if you engage in that process once a year, you basically can get your hands on absolutely anything. And I've been doing it for 25 years. I've never failed to get a ticket yet, touch wood. And, but one of the things they did there was they let us have equipment for free. And I basically thought, okay, this is really interesting. I want to be a radio journalist. So I used to go up every day. I used to buy a cheap copy of the Irish Times. I used to go up, I used to get a mini disc recorder out because that's what they used back then. And they were showing us how to edit with tape, if you believe that, in 1997. And I said to one of the guys, "Oh, come on, let's just go up and figure out how to use the computers. We'll figure it out ourselves." And we went up, and there was a sound tech guy in the room, and I said, "Do you know how to use mini disc editors? How do you?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Can you show us how to do it?" So he showed us how to do it. And there was a station called Dublin City FM. Well, it's Dublin City FM now, but it was called Anna Livy, and it was a community station. So 3 days a week, I'd go up, get a mini disc, I'd ring up some politician. I remember once nearly getting thrown out of Pat Rabbitt's office because there was some story on, and I rang and I said, oh, I'm a reporter for Dublin City FM. We want to put you on the news tonight. And it's amazing how insistent I was. He let me into his office. He wanted to watch the Dáil proceedings as I was interviewing him. I was going, sorry, Deputy, like, I need to interview you. Like, you can't have a telly on in the background. And then there was a radiator that was making noise. We had to move around. But what did that mean? That meant I got a portfolio really quickly. And I used to present the mini disc. I used to cycle on my bike into Grafton Street. I'd give them a mini disc with an introductory line and an exit line. And I'd go home then, and I had a double tape deck thing. And I'd sit by the radio when the music come on, and I'd tape my news report. And very quickly I had 10, 12, 14 stories. And because I gave them clean copy on time, and I could fill 10 minutes of their program, they loved me. And I was basically just messing around, learning what I was at. And I had the added benefit of the stuff that I was using for my portfolio, I could use for my projects as well. So it was actually good for my career, but it was also collateral that I could feed back into college. And it was really funny, like, the other thing that happened on the radio side of things was Sean O'Callaghan was one of the only people who ever was in the IRA who basically said, I was in the IRA, I'll tell you all about it. And he became known as the IRA Supergrass. But Sean O'Callaghan was from Kerry, and there was a very significant trial on Dublin where he was giving evidence. What did I do? I rang Radio Kerry and said, oh, hi, I'm a freelance journalist, I'm in Dublin. Do you want me to cover the Sean O'Callaghan case for you? And they went, yeah, we'd like that. We've no one in Dublin. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I had to come out of the court, I had to write copy, I had to read it. I'd never done it before. I thought, oh, sure, I'll figure it out. And I come back here every 6 months to do interviews, and you know what? There's no excuse for being bad at an interview. An interview is an excuse to tell the world how great you are. I used to love interviews. I used to say to people, like, interviews are really good because it's like a therapy session that you don't have to pay for. And you can tell the person that you're brilliant. The hard part is if you get the job, then you've got to do all that stuff that you said you were going to do. So you have to be kind of able to live up to it. But yeah, so I got really good experience. And then something kind of, actually this is an interesting point. I only added this slide in. When I was in college and I was studying journalism, this was kind of what, when I came out of college, and I was out of college about a year and a half, I used to worry about the media students who were coming behind me because I thought they were coming to get me. I used to think, I'm only out a year now, and they're all coming out. There's more of them coming out. They're going to flood the market. There'll be no work. And the people who are in the jobs then think that the people who are coming out are smarter and they know more stuff, and they think they're coming to get them. And the bottom line is you are coming to get them, and you have to have that in your mind, that you're coming to get them. The opportunities are there. You're as likely to get them as the next person if you're focused and if you're plugged in. So coming towards the end of the year of studying journalism, an ad came in the McGill magazine. And the ad said, we're looking for new writers and new people who want to write about current affairs. So a couple of us in the class sat down and thought, God, this would be great. Imagine if we got to write for McGill magazine. It's like getting published in the New York Times, basically. It was that big a deal. And I was 23 years of age. And so a couple of us wrote off, and we wrote to Vincent Brown and we said, yeah, we'd like to come in, Vincent, and we'd like to tell you how great we are. And so a few of us got accepted to go in for the interview, and thankfully I wasn't the first person in. And my friend in the class was a guy called Andrew Lynch, and myself and Mary were talking over lunch about the profiles in the Sunday Business Post. Andrew Lynch regularly writes the profiles in the Sunday Business Post, and he was in my class. So Andrew got in ahead of me, and I wasn't called for a few days after Andrew, and I had a big problem. I was going in to meet Vincent Brown to go write for McGill, and I had really rubbish portfolio. I had a whole lot of radio stuff, and I had 2 or 3 things I'd written for the college paper that were absolutely terrible. So I thought, you know, what am I going to do? How am I going to prepare for this opportunity with this man that's going to make a big difference? So I went down to the Dublin City Library on Pearse Street, and I said, have you got any copies of McGill? And he said, yeah. I said, how many of them you got? He said, I've got 6 boxes of them. I said, can you bring them out to me? So he came out, and I was sitting in the library with 6 boxes of McGill in front of me, and I sat there for 3 days. And I wrote out the 10 stories that I would love to write for McGill. And I did a detailed breakdown of every story, who would I interview, what the point of interest was, what the story would be about, what the angle would be about, and I proofed it and I put it in a nice folder, and then I thought, okay, I need to get into Vincent Brown, I need to get that really crap portfolio out of his hand as quick as I can, and I need to get this into his hand. So he came in, and like, Vincent's exactly like what you see on the television. He came in and he sat down, and there was a lot of huffing and puffing, and he kind of looked up from kind of his eyebrows and said, what's the best thing you've ever written? So I hand over my terrible portfolio, and he starts looking at it. This is rubbish, pure rubbish, rubbish. And then I had the document in my hand. I said, I have this, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. This. And he takes it, opens it, starts doing this. He looks up and he goes, this is an astonishing piece of work. Which story would you like to write for me first? Unbeknownst to Vincent, I had managed to get into St. Patrick's Institution, which is like the junior Mountjoy. I managed to get in there. I was doing a social justice story where I hung out with Peter McCleary in one of his hostels for kids who kind of fallen by the wrong side of the tracks. And I got in as a student. I never got in with a journey. I got a tour. So I said, I'd like to write that story as a social justice. And in 1998, he agreed to pay me £600, which is the equivalent of maybe, what, 800 or 900 euros now, to write this piece. And like everybody else, I fell out with Vincent after a while, and his parting word to me was, I wrote a few pieces from him again. He said, I can't believe I agreed to pay that sort of money. He said, was I off my rocker at that time? And, but it taught me that lesson. That if you prepare, and you know your angles, and you actually prepare really, really well, and you're completely prepared, and you know what is going to come, if it doesn't work out, then it's not meant to work out. But if you go in half-assed and half-baked, and it doesn't work out, then it's your fault. But if you prepare and take the time to prepare, somebody recently rang me and they said, I'm going for a job in a retail newspaper, and there's a whole digital element of it. And I said, if I was you, I'd spend today writing a 2-page document, and I'd deconstruct their website. I'd give them a whole lot of angles. I'd do it. He said, would you go to that bother? I said, how badly do you want the job? They said, really badly. I said, do you think that would actually mean that they would look at you differently to another candidate? They said, yeah. I said, well, here's my advice, and I've encompassed all that in the document. And she got the job, and because she went that extra mile, and she was up against somebody really, really kind of really competent who looked like they were kind of a shoe-in for the job. So this is one of my favorite. I'm a big fan of Woody Allen, and this is one of my favorite kind of Woody Allen quotes, that showing up is 80% of life, and it really is. And I'm at that stage in my career where I see people I were in college with who could barely wash on a Friday morning, being appointed chief executive of places, because they learned basically how to show up and be there. And that if you can, when I look at a CV, what do I look for? I look for academic excellence, but I also look for people who've worked. So people who I generally take on, I see a lot of work in their CV. It doesn't matter if it's a spa or a cafe. And the reason I do that is, if you've got high grades and you know how to work, I know that you'll show up every day. And I know that come Wednesday you won't go, God, this whole work thing is kind of hard, I didn't really think it was going to be this difficult. And actually getting there on time and wanting to work and being prepared, it's not a given, That's the thing of being out on Thursday night and feeling a bit hungover, or, and just, I suppose, not having the personal standards that you need to deliver a performance for somebody. And if you can show up, it's a massive thing for an employer. The other thing that happened was Image magazine brought out a men's magazine back in the late 90s that was called Himself. It didn't last very long, but to anyone who's a kind of a budding or aspiring journalist, it was a great kind of chance to they were looking for new people as well. And this is Dennis Nocton, who's still a TD, but Dennis Nocton was the youngest TD, back in the late 90s, he was the youngest TD in the dog. So I rang up the editor and went, I know Dennis Nocton really well. I knew Dennis Nocton, I didn't really know him that well. But I said, I have a great idea. Why don't we do a men's feature on the youngest TD in the dog and what it's like to be kind of a young politician? I said, yeah, go write it. So I got a commission. And Darragh O'Brien, any rugby fans in the audience? Darragh O'Brien, who presents the rugby program on RTE, he was the editor. And we still joke that he gave me my first break in journalism. He was the guy who basically commissioned me to write this piece. It was actually before the Guild thing. And it went really well, and he really liked it. And he said, what else? What other ideas do you have? And Tommy Tiernan, the comedian, was in school, in the same school as me. But when I was in first year, Tommy was the leaving cert, so I didn't really know Tommy, but I had that connection with him. I said, oh, what about Tommy Tiernan? And back in 1998, Tommy Tiernan was just becoming the really big thing, the really hot thing. And he said, yeah. And anytime I meet Tommy now, as Tommy says, we reminisce about the good old days when he was starting out and I was starting out. And he gave me 2 interviews. He gave me one for my college project, which was very generous of him. He gave me an hour-long radio interview, which I still have it, and it was great. But he also did a feature interview where, you know, it was Ireland, it was 1998. He admitted in a feature in a men's magazine that he regularly took cocaine. And I can imagine all of what you've taught about verifying information and stuff. And I kind of rang him up and said, Tom, you know, I kind of like you, you know, I'm kind of reading through this, and I kind of broke even the ethics. He said, that stuff you said about the cocaine, yeah. I said it on the tape, didn't I? I said, yeah, put it in, yeah, no problem. And it was a really good story, and like got picked up by all the tabloids and stuff. But and that was just, you know, I proved to the magazine that I could do it, that I could deliver a copy, and they commissioned me to do more stuff. Then I came out of college, and the kind of dream got a bit rusty. And the big issue went Wallop, and I kind of was there 2 months, and I was getting kind of paid a pittance, and I kind of thought, okay, this is not very rock and roll, and kind of the big high excitement of the Gale and all that kind of had began to wane, and I thought, oh, what's going to happen? And I turned to cows. There was a girl that was living in the apartment that I was living in, and her aunt had kind of big connections in the farming sector. And she goes, oh, my aunt knows a guy, and he publishes a whole lot of farming magazines. And through that connection, I got a job working for the Farmers Monthly magazine, and I hated it. I hated it more than working in marketing, in shoe marketing. And like I went from kind of writing about comedy and kind of current affairs to writing about mastitis, you know? They're like, that's all you need to know, really. And the luckiest break I ever got in my career happened at this stage. And what happened was, I was coming home, I was 6 or 7 weeks into it, I was coming home one day, and I got a call from my college lecturer. And he said, will you ring me back? And I said, I will, yeah. And David Quinn, and he was the head of the journalism course in DIT. And myself and David got on really well. There was only 12 people in the class. And once a week, me and David would go for a cup of coffee in the canteen, and we used to talk about politics all the time. And he rings me up and he goes, you love politics, don't you? I said, oh yeah, I'm really into it, all right. And he said, well, something interesting is after happening. And I said, what? And he said, John Murray, who's there, who presents the John Murray Show in RT, he said, John Murray's a past pupil of here. He's just after calling, and the call was sent through to me. And John is looking for a press officer to work with him. And he works with Mary Harney, but he's looking for somebody who will be a press officer for the Progressive Democrats. And he said, would you be interested? I said, would I what? I said, yeah, sign me up. So he said, okay, I'll ring them back. So 2 days later, I'm in government buildings. I'm walking into government buildings going, I can't actually believe what's happening. And I'm in John's office and do an interview with John. We instantly click and get on. John's one of my best friends. It's kind of 15 years ago. John's, to this day, himself and John are like really good friends. And the next day I had an interview with Des O'Malley, Bobby Malloy, and Mary Harney. I think it's the only time I've ever done an interview is I was asked what my opinions on Charlie Haughey were. And I was 25 years of age, and I remember like getting the job and going in kind of to negotiate my salary, kind of I'm going to make sure I get a good salary. And it was the biggest pay increase I'm ever likely to get in my life. I had been earning £15,000, and the starting salary was 25 grand. And I nearly fell off my chair. I was like, yeah, that's okay, yeah, I'm good with that. And it was amazing. So I kind of went from writing about kind of the Mart and Mallow to dealing with political editors in this kind of crazy environment where you live on the crisis and you're dealing with people on issues and politics. And it was an unbelievable kind of learning curve. And lots of days were like this, where I was kind of the wrong side of the kind of the media scrum trying to sort out the problem. And this was the other thing that I learned at that time, that the measure of your intelligence is the ability to change. I live my life now on kind of 3 or 4 year cycles, and I know that sounds kind of very wanky and a bit American, but like I know that if I don't change utterly what I do or how I do it every 4 years, that I'll be extinct. I'll be as dead as the dodo. And I do yearly plans as to what I want to achieve. And last October I sat down and 2014 is the year we turn the company inside out. And you can't do that unless you're receptive to do that. You can't do that. And you know, I meet some people who talk about the media industry dying or being on the way out. And there isn't any great change that happens that isn't a massive opportunity for somebody else. And that's how you should look at it. And if you have the ability to change and have the instincts to know what's going to happen, that you can adapt yourself to that, then you'll be successful. Fast forward to the end of politics, I decided I'd work for myself, and I worked 3 years as a corporate communications consultant. And then in November 2006, I decided that I was going to start a business that wasn't just me working on my own. And this guy's called Mike Burns, and Mike published the Irish Media Contacts Directory. And this is, I think, what the recession and 2 children and this year. This is me in November of 2006, and I bought 4 boxes of books for an exorbitant sum of money and the rights to publish it. And since then, we've kind of, we've had a kind of an amazing journey. This was the first book that I bought, and it was interesting. The first year we published the book 3 times in a year, and we realized that, okay, I have friends who've worked a long number of years in the newspaper industry, as does Mary, and if you stay too long working in a newspaper, you just go slowly mad. The whole thing of the cycle every day and the production thing. So we did the telephone book 3 times the first year. We thought, okay, keep this up, we're going to go broke, and we're going to go really, really crazy. And the thing that we kind of learned at the start was, to disrupt the status quo and not to protect it. And don't ever put a drawbridge up after you. I think I'm safe here, everything's fine, I'm on a good number here. Because the way the media is changing now is utterly changing. So we decided we would go down a path and we would create a digital platform so that selling the books just wasn't going to work. And so the last 6 years has been the most turmoil in the history of the global economy. Our turnover has grown 500% in the last 6 years. Because we embraced change, because we disrupted the status quo, because we kept continually changing, and we embraced the kind of digital environment. So we went from a book to doing lots of different things. The interesting thing was when we made the jump into going digital, the one thing that we realized really quickly was that all our customers were in the rearview mirror. So we were making this big jump to go digital. And we thought, okay, maybe we could help people actually go digital. So this whole training business kind of started then. And you may have kind of realized this from listening to me since I started talking. I like talking to people. And I love talking to students. And the way I kind of self-actualize is I like ideas and I like creating things, but I also like communicating with people. So I get a huge level of satisfaction from training. And I don't have to do it every day. I do it maybe 4 or 5 days a month, but it's a really good thing to do. And then we created MediaHQ.com. So MediaHQ.com is an online platform where companies come and they buy a subscription. So everybody from Paddy Power to the Revenue Commissioners to Bank of Ireland use it now to distribute press releases. So you get a subscription and you log on, and there's information and data on every journalist in the country there, and you can distribute a press release from your own email, or you can publish your story on MediaHQ.com, and we have a social media team who connected with people. And as of this morning, before I left Dublin, 62,641 stories have been shared in the last 5 years. So it went from a kind of a germ of an idea to becoming a platform that people pay, good money to access. And the interesting thing is that a book to me is a dead end. If somebody comes up and a couple of years ago we stopped selling the books on their own. So you guys are already lucky because Mary Sweet talked me into bringing a box of books here today. And I don't
tell them what you normally charge.
Yeah, we normally charge. When people rock up and say I want to buy a book, we say, well, if you want to buy the book, it's going to cost you 500 quid. And they go, what? We go, we see. We say, I tell you what, if you buy the small version of the online thing, we give you 3 books. we can give you a couple of books to wallpaper the wall, but we need you to go digital. So like we give you a book to satisfy that part of your brain, but we want you to start using the digital platform. That's going to cost you €500. And this is this whole thing of disrupting. So when we realized that we could hemorrhage 80% of our audience and still be at the same level by going from books at €90 to an online package at €500, we thought, okay, that's a risk worth taking. And that if people really want the book, then they really need the digital. So if people come and go, well, I just want the book, well, you really need the digital. And it stopped them taking the book and driving off in the sunset and being dysfunctional and not going digital. And they go, well, why can't you just give me the book, because we don't sell books anymore. And that has been a really good starting point kind of for stuff.
Jack, will you just explain to them the difference between just the book and what you offer digitally?
Yeah, so the way Media HQ works is that you buy a subscription and you come on, but you build all your media lists. So if you're selling an environmental product, you might have environmental journalists. You can build a list for every county in Ireland, and then you can write your press release on it, and you can distribute it to people from your own email address. But you can also write a story and publish it on Media HQ. And when you publish it, it'll send a tweet with a link to the article. And we have a social media team that work they work 4 nights a week until 10 o'clock, connecting an audience with our client stories on Twitter. And Owen and Lisa, who are here, who worked with me and who were in the class, worked on that project when they were there. So that's kind of how that works. And I'll talk a bit about Gazix Guide in a minute. But so what happens is communications teams use it to reach out. Our job then is to make sure that the intelligence on the media is completely up to date. And actually that's quite easy, so that we have a proactive research process that kind of tries to find out new information. But when you have hundreds of people sharing press releases with people and email addresses, we find out before anybody if somebody's left a newsroom, because their email bounces and we ring and they go, oh yeah, Johnny got sacked yesterday, or Mary no longer works here, or so it works really, really well. Just to give you an example, here's a story that Paddy Power uses service, and here's a story that Paddy Power are brilliant at latching on things that are newsworthy. So this is before Katie Taylor won the medal, and it's a story basically Taylor tipped to carry Olympic torch through Dublin, and it was in 2011. And that story, you can't really see it, it got nearly 15,000 views on Media HQ. And RTE signed up to use Media HQ, their press team. And somebody said, why are Paddy Power issuing odds on who's going to get shot in Low-Pate? And somebody else said, because they know everybody's talking about it. And they know if they put it up there, it becomes social media gold and people share it around the place. So that's kind of how we help people. And we plug in kind of an education piece into that as well. So like we run courses on how to write press releases, how to write social news. We do training on LinkedIn and all of the other networks, and Twitter and stuff like that. So just a couple of lessons before I stop talking, and I'll take questions then. What you do, I suppose lesson one is what you do matters less than you think. So what kind of happens at the end of college is you get completely obsessed about kind of what you're going to do, and it's not as important. Like I ended up doing a couple of things that I didn't want to do to experience, but sometimes people use that as an excuse to completely paralyze themselves and not to kind of get doing something. There's a brilliant maxim in kind of business in the States, and start small, but for God's sake, start. So you need to have a small snowball rolling on the ground to get a big snowball. So don't get obsessed about exactly kind of what you're doing. It doesn't matter as much as you think that it matters. This is really important. Cultivate your craft before your passion. There's a complete misnomer where people tell kids, people in their early 20s who are coming out of college, follow your passion. And like, what's your passion? Going to the stables, going to copper-faced jacks, hanging out on Facebook. People tend not to know their passions when they're kind of in their 20s. I didn't really, and it took me a while to figure it out. But what's more important than your passion is your craft. So from the ages of 25 to 30, I was dealing with newspaper editors, political correspondents, and I was dealing with a lot of shit hitting a lot of fans. And I was dealing with government ministers and having meltdowns. I was dealing with political crisis, people having to resign, and it made a man out of me. basically, you know, when you go through that and you get through it, and you're in a business meeting kind of 10 years later and someone's having a meltdown, you've seen it all before. You've seen, you know, you've fried bigger fish, and that's cultivating your craft. And if you can get into a job or into a role where you have to write a lot of copy, where you have to broadcast stuff, or where you have to kind of get the message out there, if you can do that and you keep doing stuff over and over again and you become really, really good at it, and it doesn't matter if you're going to do that voluntarily or you're going to do it, if you're going to do it in a professional way, but your craft and the things that you're being taught here, if you get an opportunity to practice those over and over again, it's really, really important. So like your craft is kind of like, if you look at someone who's a master kind of blower of glass, you know, it takes years and years to perfect your craft, and the best time to do it is in your 20s. I joke with my staff and I say, listen, enjoy your 20s, don't spend them worrying about the stability of the government like I did, you know. I get a little bit resentful about that sometimes, that I wasn't having more craft, but knowing my personality type, I probably would have been worrying about something else. These guys are the guys behind Second Captains. Anybody ever watched that show or listened to that podcast? So they all did journalism, and they all ended up in News Talk, and because News Talk is kind of very under-resourced, they gave them, quite bizarrely, they gave them a 3-hour radio program every night, and they said, oh, there's a sports show, you know, here's a couple of producers, off you go, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours were spent honing their craft. They came up with their whole editorial direction. They basically created this show that had a cult following, and then they had a massive fallout with News Talk because they wanted a different slot, and News Talk said, no, you guys are getting too big for your boots, see you later. And they thought, no, we like this, we like each other, we like what we're doing. They went away for a couple of weeks and they created a new brand called Second Captains, and the Irish Times have invested a whole lot of money in them, and they said, listen, you know, this is a really good thing. RTE commissioned them to do a TV program, and they spent hundreds of hours cultivating an intellectual program about sports that an audience plug into and like, and they're really good at it, and people like what they do, and they're very relevant to their target audience. And you know, I do a lot of media interviews, and I might do media training course with 15 people, and 15 people will come before you and they say, what do you want to talk about? And they say, I want to talk about the situation in the Ukraine, and the next guy might want to talk about ocean pollution. And people have said to me, how are you able to do an interview on all of those topics and you kind of seem like you know what you're doing? I say, one, I'm a trained journalist, and two, I've been doing it for 15 years. So that like, if you can do things and you do it, like, and so you know how to conduct an interview and you can do it, they're the things that will get you until you're 90. And the really good thing is that learning how to write, how to communicate, how to broadcast, the really great news is it's a lifelong skill. So that, like, you know, people when they get to a certain age and they become kind of like the grey vote, they're forgotten about. But what do we get as we get older? We'd like to think that our judgment gets a bit better, and that those instincts are honed. If you're a writer or a communicator or a broadcaster, or you're doing stuff kind of web or online, you know, you can do this for all of your life, and that's the really, really good part of it. Start building a network now. Sometimes people come to my LinkedIn course and I go, I'd love to be you, I'd love to be 22, I'd love to be 23 and starting out again, and I'd love to be building a network. And have a look at this next slide very closely, and this is kind of, so you see the little dot in the corner, this is kind of what it's like to build a network. And it doesn't, it takes time, so that everybody's network kind of starts like this, and then kind of over time it kind of grows and kind of becomes more significant. But like there was a time in my career where, you know, I had a bad bicycle, I used to cycle to the big issues, I didn't really know anybody, and that kind of lesson that my dad taught me about you can never know enough people, and I suppose having a genuine interest in people and kind of building things up so that everywhere you go, that your network gets that little bit larger, gets that little bit bigger, and that what happens is, as your network gets bigger, it helps you kind of solve problems. And I have a couple of friends now, and we play this kind of really kind of wicked game on each other where they'll ring you and they might say, listen, I have a problem with a client. He needs to reach, and it could be something else obscure, as he needs to reach the foreign minister in Bolivia, and it could be something that random. He knows that I'll try. He knows that I'll try and figure a way of dissecting the whole Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation, and I'll ring him back and go, actually I know someone who might know him. I have a friend who's a diplomat in South America, and I'm sure he'd be able to put in a call to put a good word in. And it's that thing of realizing kind of, at one stage you're a speck on that network, but how can you be the largest known, and how can you be the person who connects with more people? And there's a brilliant American marketing guy called Seth Godin, and if you Google it, I think it's called, he has a brilliant blog post called The Power of a Single Day, and in it he lists 10 things you can do any day to extend your network. And he kind of said, if you did one of these things every day, after a year, you'd have an army of people who would do something for you. And I kind of printed it out, and I got the guys in the office to stick it on the desk, and I said, like, anytime you're having a really bad day, and you need to think of, okay, what can I do to make things a bit better? Do one of the things here. Always bring intent. I'm a massive fan of Pádraig Harrington, and Pádraig Harrington won 3 majors in 14 months. He used to go around with this mad face on, this kind of mad game intent head on. And if you're motivated and you bring intent to anything you do, so I tried to do that throughout my career, whether it was preparing to win and meet Vincent Brown, whether it was to prepare for a new job. I always basically had intent, and like intent means intensity, but it means that you go with the intention that you're going to solve something or you're going to do it. And when Harrington used to be asked, are you going to win a major, he used to always say, I'm going to win more than one. And he won 3. And if you had asked anyone, they'd say he wasn't good enough to win more. But he had intent, and he brought that to it. And that's, what is intent? Intent is going to a problem and thinking, how can I write the best profile possible? How can I do the best interview? How can I actually be better than everybody else that goes into that interview tomorrow? What do I need to do? When students here come for interview from me for co-op, do you know the question that messes most people up? Tell me what you know about what do we do. That's my show me what intent you have question. And when I get the whole, the co-op office told us only yesterday, I think, next please. Generally the people who get the job are the people who completely know everything we do, have spoken to somebody else, have sought out somebody who did the job, have debriefed them, and come in and they know and destroy company information. Very impressive. And I generally want to spend longer with those people than people who haven't bothered. Have ideas. Always have ideas. And if you're in an environment that doesn't encourage innovation, that doesn't encourage ideas, I would suggest get out of it. And if you're in a place that doesn't like innovation, if you're in a place that doesn't want your ideas, go somewhere else. Because if you're in a place, so I worked in marketing, and then I went to work with PDs, and by default I used to always be in an office on my own with no secretary. So I had no backup services, I had no facilities. It was just me and what was between my ears. And like everybody else in the downturn, I made some kind of bad financial decisions. But I used to say to my wife, we'll be okay. And she'd go, why? Because this is the best computer. What's between my ears, I said, this is the best computer we have. So, nothing's going to take that away. And the point is that if you're in a place that you can come up with new ideas. The other thing that has sustained me, I suppose, through the difficult times in the economy was I have this mantra where I think you always need to be 2 ideas ahead of the problem. So if you're having a really bad day and you're freelancing, but you're working on 2 new projects or you've got 2 ideas out there, human nature always says, oh, there's always this other thing, and this other thing is going to be amazing. Oh, listen, I know today was bad, but this other thing is going to be great. And this other thing is generally not always as great as you think it is, but by the time you get on to this other thing, then there's 2 other things that are equally as good. And that kind of force of ideas and positivity are kind of what get you through the thing. Learn skills in your own time. The other thing that kills me when I meet media students and people who are studying journalism and communication, and it comes up in interviews all the time where I say, are you on Twitter? And they say, well, I'm on Twitter, but I don't tweet. Don't ever say that to anybody in an interview. Because the bottom line is, my generation expect your generation to have this stuff nailed. The way you can make yourself useful in an interview is saying, yeah, I know how to do business pages on Facebook. I've been tweeting for 2 years. I'm across it. I tweet voluntarily for the local running club. I do a campaign for them, and then you go and you think, God, I met this guy at the interview today. He's got the whole Twitter thing nailed. We could bring it, like he'd be a ready-made kind of digital person to come in straight away. He understands the implications of it for journalism. He knows, like, he was au fait with what the Sydney Morning Herald are doing in the New York Times, and he's got their whole online strategy sorted out. And like, I know, right, because I wasted a little bit of my life on Facebook. I'm sure if I said, put your hand up if you think you spend far too much time on Facebook, most of your hands would go up. Think about how you could use some of the time you spend on Facebook to figure out how people are using Facebook properly for work reasons, and how you could use that, or you could spend some of the time figuring out how journalists are using Twitter effectively. And the next time you go to an interview, you can talk about it really intelligently. Everybody should have a LinkedIn profile and should be connecting with people. And the really clever people here would send me a LinkedIn invite after today, and make sure you don't send me the generic one. Put a message in it about something, but just personalize it. Because nobody likes getting a generic one. But figure those things out in your own time. And like, the last lesson is hard work is impressive. Hard work impresses people. If I see someone's CV, or I've seen someone who's worked really hard, I want that person to be working really hard for me and my business. And kind of, if I see someone who's got really good grades and I see that they can graft and they can put in a good shift, I know that if they've got intent and they can work hard, it's going to be really good. So like, hard work is impressive, and the ability to do stuff and kind of, to spend time on it will impress employers. Yeah, and I suppose the last one is stop thinking about getting a job. Think about your career. Think about a career. Think about having a lifetime of doing it. And if you fixate on just getting a job, then you'll be fixating on just getting a job. And I'm unemployable. I'll never probably work for anybody. No, I will never work for anybody ever again. And I've become what I describe as anti-institutionalized. The thoughts of working in a normal environment, I just wouldn't be able to do it. And when you make that leap, what happens is most people struggle with security. Freedom becomes your drug when you make that leap, and you work harder, but you have more flexibility. And yeah, granted, I honed my craft working in my 20s, but I haven't worked for anybody since I was 30 years of age. And for the last 11 years, I haven't worked for anybody. So don't always focus on getting a job, because it's a recipe for being disappointed. But focus on how you can hone your kind of skills in your craft and get stuff out there. So just finally, I suppose, before we go, just to show you kind of what my influences were. I grew up in a business, so around my kitchen table, business was always discussed, and that whole notion of the concept of a business. And I see my life now that kind of quite resembles my parents had kind of grown up. I suppose that it's no surprise. My life is always full of stories. So like, from those stories that my dad told, and kind of, being in a small community and being interested in what people, the customers coming into the shop, there were stories everywhere. Politics played a huge role. My grandfather, who I didn't really know, was a local politician. My dad was a local politician. And people used to tell me, you'll become a politician. And I'd say, no, I value my life far too much to become a politician. And I got as close to it as I ever wanted to be when I worked in politics. But it's no surprise to me that politics has played a huge part of it. And I suppose the media, and when we were kids, the Farmers Journal and the Connacht Tribune came in on Thursday. It's a major event, and that's why I kind of wanted to do it and latch onto it. So thanks for your attentiveness, and I'll gladly take any questions.
Thanks very much.